In the divided town of Woodbridge, Captain Elias Ramirez lives a life rooted in honor and humility, values instilled by his military family. But one quiet afternoon shatters his world when he's brutally assaulted during a routine traffic stop by Officer Kirk Matthews, a cop notorious for his prejudice. Little does Kirk know, Elias has recorded the entire ordeal. Determined to fight back, Elias seeks justice, not just for himself, but for everyone silenced by abuse of power. As he battles systemic corruption with the guidance of his father, Colonel Miguel Ramirez, and support from local activist Talia, Elias must navigate a web of lies and threats that reach far deeper than he ever imagined. Secrets unravel, alliances form, and the stakes rise in a courtroom showdown that will expose more than just one man's cruelty. In a town teetering between division and change, can Elias's unwavering integrity bring the justice he seeks, or will the cost of standing up prove too great? Elias Ramirez drove through the quiet streets of Woodbridge in his old, beat-up car. The afternoon sun bathed the town in a golden glow, and for a moment, he let himself feel the serenity. The simplicity of this moment reminded him of the values his parents had instilled: humility, honor, and integrity. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror. "Just stay calm," Elias muttered to himself, pulling over. The officer, tall and muscular with an intimidating presence, approached. "License and registration," the officer demanded coldly. "Of course, officer," Elias replied, his voice calm. He handed over his documents, feeling tension coil in his gut. Officer Kirk Matthews scowled at Elias's modest attire and car. "You sure this vehicle is yours?" he sneered. "Looks too decent for someone like you." Elias took a steadying breath. "Yes, sir. It's mine." Kirk leaned in, eyes cold and calculating. "You think I'll buy that?" He spat the words, clearly savoring his power. "I have the documents," Elias responded, his voice controlled. Anger simmered beneath his calm exterior, but he kept his composure. Kirk's eyes narrowed. "Get out of the car." The order was laced with the promise of trouble. Elias stepped out, his movements deliberate. Kirk's search turned aggressive, and frustration flared when nothing incriminating appeared. "Hands on the hood," Kirk barked. Elias obeyed, and then came the first blow, a punch to the gut. Elias gasped, pain stealing his breath. "Stay down, boy," Kirk sneered. Elias bit back a cry, thinking only of the phone discreetly recording everything. Each strike burned, each insult seared, but he clung to the knowledge that justice was still possible. Elias limped into his parents' house, the weight of his injuries pressing on him. His mother, Maria, wasn't home yet, but his father, Colonel Miguel Ramirez, immediately saw the bruises. "What happened?" Miguel asked, his voice tight with barely contained anger. Elias explained, detailing Kirk's brutality. Miguel listened, his expression a mask of calm. "We must act strategically," Miguel said. "Don't tell your mother. She'll worry herself sick." Elias nodded, conflicted but trusting his father's wisdom. "What should I do?" he asked. Miguel's eyes softened. "Seek care from your mother, but hold your ground. We'll find justice." Maria gasped at the sight of Elias's battered face. "My God, what happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Training accident," Elias lied, his heart aching at the worry in her eyes. Maria's gentle hands tended to his bruises, and the love in her touch made the pain feel bearable. "You need to be careful," Maria whispered, her eyes full of concern. Elias forced a smile, guilt gnawing at him. "Always, Mama," he promised, silently vowing that her kindness would not be in vain. As he left her embrace, he steeled himself. The real fight was only beginning. Elias sat on the edge of his bed, the weight of his phone in his hand as heavy as the decision he was about to make. He reviewed the recording once more, each word from Officer Kirk Matthews echoing in his mind. "This is it," Elias whispered to himself. His father's advice rang in his ears. Integrity over impulse, honor above all else. He steeled himself. Maria peeked into the room, her face etched with worry. "Elias, are you okay? You haven't eaten." "I'll be fine, May," Elias replied, forcing a smile. "I just have something important to do." Maria's gaze lingered, full of unspoken concern, before she nodded and left. Elias took a shaky breath, grabbed his keys, and headed out the door. Transition. Elias gripped the steering wheel tightly, driving toward the police station, prepared for whatever came next. At the Woodbridge police station, the air felt stifling. Officers watched Elias with curiosity, some with suspicion. The front desk sergeant raised an eyebrow. "Can I help you?" Elias's voice was steady. "I need to speak with Captain Rivera. It's urgent." Minutes later, Captain Luis Rivera, a tall man with a commanding presence, greeted him. "Captain Ramirez," he said, taking in Elias's uniform. "What brings you here?" Elias handed over his phone. "Evidence of abuse. Officer Matthews targeted me unjustly and violently. It's all there." Rivera listened to the recording, his expression darkening. "This is serious. We'll open a formal investigation." But he hesitated. "I can't guarantee swift action. There's resistance." Elias clenched his fists. "I understand, but this won't go away quietly." Transition. As Elias walked out of the station, a storm of uncertainty brewed within him, but so did a flicker of hope. Back at home, Elias's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Talia, an old family friend and activist, stood there, her eyes filled with concern. "I heard what happened," she said. "Are you okay?" Elias nodded. "I'm handling it." Talia stepped closer. "You're not alone. This is bigger than you. Let's rally the community. We can't let this slide." Elias hesitated. "It's dangerous, Talia." Her eyes burned with conviction. So is silence. Elias felt his resolve strengthening. "Then let's do it. Together." Transition. Talia's determination fueled Elias's courage, and he agreed to speak at a community meeting, ready for whatever lay ahead. Colonel Ramirez watched his son pace the living room. "You're taking a big risk," he warned, his voice even but worried. Elias met his father's gaze. "I know, but this is the right thing." Miguel's brow furrowed. "Be strategic. They'll fight back." "I'm prepared," Elias assured. "But I need to know you support me." Miguel exhaled. "Always. But promise me you'll stay vigilant." "I will," Elias said. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but his father's support gave him strength. Transition. Elias embraced his father, then left for the community meeting, his mind set on the battle ahead. A crowd had gathered at the park, murmurs of anticipation swirling around. Elias stood before them, heart pounding. He shared his story, playing the recording. The air crackled with tension, some faces etched with anger, others with doubt. Talia took the stage, her voice commanding. "This isn't just Elias's fight. It's all of ours." Elias felt a surge of unity as some in the crowd nodded in agreement. But he also noticed skeptical eyes, a reminder of the uphill battle. As the gathering broke up, Elias's phone buzzed. It was Captain Rivera. "We have new developments," Rivera said. Elias's pulse quickened. "I'm on my way." Transition. The meeting had sparked a fire, but Elias knew the fight had only just begun. Elias paces around his room, phone pressed to his ear as Captain Rivera delivers shocking news. "There are more complaints about Kirk," Rivera says, tension in his voice. "But there's resistance from higher-ups." Elias grips his phone tighter, feeling the weight of the corruption he's facing. "I knew this wouldn't be easy," he murmurs. He hangs up, determination mingling with dread as he realizes how deep this problem runs. But he steels himself. This fight is just beginning. Alone, Elias sits on his bed, staring at family photos lining his wall. He picks up one of him as a child, sitting on his father's lap. "Am I strong enough for this?" he whispers. He closes his eyes, remembering the sacrifices his parents made for him. Tears prick his eyes, but he wipes them away. "No, I can't back down now," he says, voice cracking but resolute. The memories give him the strength he needs, and he decides to seek out Talia for guidance. Elias and Talia sit in a quiet cafe. Talia leans forward, eyes sharp with resolve. "We need more community support," she insists. Elias nods. "And media coverage," she adds. "It'll put pressure on the department." Elias agrees. but his gut twists at the thought of making himself a bigger target. Just as they leave, Elias's phone buzzes. He reads the anonymous message. Drop the case or you'll regret it. Fear flares in his eyes, but he shows Talia, and she grabs his hand. We'll fight this together, she promises. At home, Elias shows the threat to his parents. Maria's face pales, and she clutches his arm. We need to protect you, she pleads. Miguel, ever stoic, tightens security around the house. We knew this would be dangerous, he tells Elias. Maria's eyes well with tears, and Elias feels his heart break. I won't let fear win, Elias vows, looking at his parents. The family's love strengthens him, even as the danger looms over them. Elias stands in Captain Rivera's office, the weight of the conspiracy pressing on his shoulders. Rivera looks exhausted, guilt shadowing his eyes. I'm being pressured to bury this case, he confesses. He slides a file across the table. This will help, but it's dangerous. Elias opens the folder, reading about Kirk's connections to powerful figures. Thank you, Elias says, meeting Rivera's eyes. The commander's silent nod is one of reluctant solidarity. Elias leaves, knowing he holds dangerous knowledge, but also hope for the battle ahead. Elias sat with Talia at a dimly lit coffee shop. The air buzzed with the aroma of freshly ground beans and hushed conversations. Together, they pored over the file Captain Rivera had handed Elias. This is a nightmare, Talia whispered, tracing her finger over the names listed. Prominent figures, including business owners and politicians. Elias clenched his jaw. It's worse than we thought. If Kirk is protected by this web, then we're up against an entire system. Talia leaned forward. We can't let fear stop us. We need to expose this. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the truth. Let's contact Ben Carter. If anyone can break this story wide open, it's him. Meeting with Ben Carter, the seasoned journalist, felt surreal. Ben eyed the documents skeptically at first, but quickly turned serious. You understand the risk you're taking, right? He asked, adjusting his glasses. This isn't just news. It's a declaration of war against powerful people. Elias nodded. We're ready for the consequences. The people need to know. Ben sighed, scribbling notes. I'll publish it, but expect backlash. You might want to consider protection. His words hung heavy, a grim reminder of the enemies they were making. Elias exchanged a glance with Talia. They had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The house was still, shadows pooling in every corner, when the first sound shattered the peace. Maria screamed as glass exploded inward. Elias rushed to her, shielding her from the flying shards. Get down, he yelled, heart pounding. Miguel grabbed his old service pistol. We're under attack, he growled, taking up a defensive position. The chaos was deafening, the attackers' faceless shadows retreating before they could be caught. When the silence returned, Maria's hands trembled as she clung to Elias. Why is this happening? She whispered. Elias's eyes burned with tears of fury. Because they're afraid of the truth. He looked at his family and vowed to end this nightmare. The town square was alive with anger and hope. Elias stood before a crowd, his voice steady but passionate. We deserve better, he declared, the file in his hand. We deserve a town free from corruption. Talia stepped up beside him, amplifying the call for justice. Change starts with us, she urged, and the crowd erupted in agreement. Amid the chants, Elias spotted familiar faces, some hopeful, some skeptical. The energy of the crowd was electric, but it came with the knowledge that their fight had only begun. As the rally ended, Elias's phone buzzed with a message. The story goes live tomorrow. Be ready. Elias sat with his family, the morning sun casting long shadows. The news anchor's voice was clear. Breaking. Massive corruption ring exposed in Woodbridge. Photos of Kirk and others flashed on the screen. Maria squeezed Elias's hand. You did it, she whispered, pride and fear mingling in her voice. Elias nodded, feeling both triumph and dread. The battle was public now, and retaliation would come. A call interrupted the moment. Captain Rivera. Elias, Rivera said, his voice grim. We need to meet. Things are moving fast, and not in our favor. Elias hung up, steeling himself for the storm he had unleashed. The fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Elias sat, his uniform pressed and his demeanor stoic. The defense attorney, a slick man in a navy suit, rose first, his voice smooth and assured. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is a case of misunderstanding," he began, attempting to paint Elias's encounter as exaggerated. Elias clenched his fists but stayed silent. When Elias's lawyer stood, he commanded the room with his presence. "This case isn't just about one man's honor. It's about systemic abuse, prejudice, and the right to be treated with respect," he declared, placing emphasis on each word. Elias felt his heart pound. Maria, sitting a few rows behind, whispered a prayer. Colonel Ramirez watched, his jaw clenched, projecting strength. As the opening statements concluded, Elias readied himself to take the stand. Elias took a deep breath, stepping forward to face the courtroom. "State your name and rank," the judge commanded. "Captain Elias Ramirez, National Guard," Elias responded, his voice clear. He recounted the day, describing each degrading comment, each blow. When he played the recording, the courtroom was gripped with silence. Every sneer and insult from Kirk echoed through the room. The defense attorney pounced. "Captain Ramirez, isn't it possible you misinterpreted the officer's intentions?" he questioned, attempting to undermine Elias's account. Elias remained calm. "Intentions are clear when a fist meets your face," he replied, holding the man's gaze. The judge nodded, impressed with Elias's composed strength. Kirk took the stand, his bravado visibly shaken. "I was only doing my duty," he stammered, eyes darting. The defense attorney tried to paint him as a diligent officer, but the prosecutor, armed with the newly surfaced evidence, revealed Kirk's ties to the corruption network. Kirk squirmed. "It wasn't. I didn't know," he tried, but the prosecutor pressed on, leaving him floundering. Elias watched, the cracks in Kirk's facade growing wider, and the courtroom murmured. During the recess, Captain Rivera approached Elias, his face taut with determination. "I need to speak," Rivera said, surprising Elias. "You're willing to testify?" Elias asked, hope flickering in his eyes. Rivera nodded. "I can't stay silent any longer. I was pressured to protect Kirk. People need to know the truth," he confessed. Elias's resolve strengthened. "Thank you, Captain," he said, shaking Rivera's hand. As Rivera prepared to take the stand, Elias felt a renewed sense of hope. The judge's gavel struck the bench, commanding silence. "This court finds Officer Kirk Matthews guilty of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and corruption," he announced. Relief flooded Elias as Maria wept with joy, and Colonel Ramirez gave a proud nod. As Kirk was led away, his eyes filled with regret, Elias turned to his mother. "It's over, for now," he whispered, hugging her. Yet, the judge's final words echoed in his mind. "The investigation into the wider corruption continues." Elias left the courtroom, knowing the battle for justice had only just begun, but for the first time, the path forward felt possible. Elias stepped through the door of his family home, the familiar scent of Maria's cooking wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. Maria rushed over, her eyes filled with worry. "Elias, you're back." She examined the remaining bruises on his face, her concern palpable. Elias took her hands gently. "Mama, there's something I need to tell you." His voice trembled slightly, but he held her gaze. Maria's brow furrowed. "You've been hiding something, haven't you?" With a deep breath, Elias explained everything. The roadside assault, the court battle, the recording. Maria's hands flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Elias." He pulled her into a hug. "I'm okay, Mama. We made it through." The next evening, Elias and Talia stood before a gathering at Woodbridge's community hall. The air buzzed with mixed emotions, admiration, skepticism, and cautious hope. A man stepped forward. "Elias, what you did took courage." "Thank you," Talia added. "Change won't come easy, but we need each other now more than ever." Elias scanned the crowd. Some nodded, others murmured uncertainty, but he felt the shift, however slight, toward unity. "Together," Elias said, his voice strong. "We can make Woodbridge better." After the meeting, Elias and Talia walked to the park under the starlit sky. Talia's eyes sparkled with resolve. "I'm thinking of starting a community organization, something to fight for equality and justice. Would you join me?" Elias smiled, his shoulders finally feeling lighter. "You know I'm in." They shared a quiet laugh, and Elias added, "This is just the beginning." Talia's grin widened. "Good. We'll make real change." Days later, Elias stood in front of a packed auditorium for a special ceremony. Colonel Miguel Ramirez, his father, stood beside him, pride shining in his eyes. The general who led the event called Elias forward. "Captain Elias Ramirez, your bravery and integrity have set an example for us all." Elias accepted his medal, his heart swelling with gratitude and resolve. He stepped up to the microphone. "This isn't just for me. It's for everyone who believes in fighting for what's right." The crowd erupted into applause, but Elias's mind was already thinking of the work ahead. On a warm afternoon, Elias and Maria visited the community center Talia had worked tirelessly to set up. Children played on the front lawn, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Maria placed a hand on Elias's arm. "You've come so far, my son." Elias smiled, feeling hope blossom in his chest. "And we're only getting started, Mama." He watched the sun dip toward the horizon, his heart full of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he was ready.